members.
Okay, the time is currently 5:30, and we will begin our October 8th study session. Tammy, please let the record show that all board members are present this evening. And this evening, I have the pleasure of leading you in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, all those who are able, if you could please stand. Are you having troubles hearing me? Okay. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's try this again. Can I borrow yours, maybe? Of course you may. Oh, the system's down?
It's going to be intermittent.
Oh. I will try to speak very loudly.
It's on.
Oh, now it's on. Okay. Sorry, this is going to be awkward. And board members, board docs keeps going up and down, so we may have to do some verbal votes this evening. We're moving on to item 2.03, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion that the board approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion from Board Member Thomas Tate, second from Board Member Provance. And we will vote at this time, hopefully.
I don't have board docs.
Okay, we're just going to do verbal. I'll start with you, Board Member Provance. Board Member Bruner.
Aye.
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 And chair votes aye. Motion that the board approve the agenda as presented passes 7-0. That brings us to item 3.01, public comments. This evening, we have no public comments. That brings us to item 4.01, Foundation for Springfield Public Schools, and Natalie Murdoch, the Executive Director for the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools, will share the annual update. Good evening.
Thanks for having me tonight. I think we might not have the slides, so I'm just going to share the numbers and we will get you the slides later. So I wanted to just share kind of a recap of our year at the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools. One of the things that we do at each of our board members, here we go, is we present all of our board members each month with this 3 pillars of success update. So this is what you're looking at here is our fiscal year in review, so ended on June 30th. So some of you that came to our office for our lunch might have seen these numbers before, but we'll just do a quick reminder. We raised $1.8 million last year, and that second portion, it was a great year. Kind of tells you a breakdown of where those funds go to. So you can see that the majority of those dollars went into our permanent and temporary funds, which is wonderful. It just means that those permanent funds will continue to provide resources to students forever and ever. So we love to see that number. We were managing at the end of the fiscal year $8.1 million in funds that benefit our schools, and we distributed over $900,000 in grants. And so you can see some of that money was distributed through grants to classrooms, some of it was for scholarships, some of it was through just pass-through donations that we manage. So a lot of really great things happening last year. And so the next slide, there we go, is kind of more of an early fiscal year update for you, and I actually ran new numbers today. So these are as of 9/17, so last month, and I ran new numbers. So that raised number is now $576,000. We've had a really busy 2 weeks, and so we've been busy. We have doubled that number already. We are managing now $7.9 million, and we have already given away $935,000 this year. So it is just a wonderful time for our community and for our schools. Our donors are really stepping up to the plate and seeing needs and meeting those needs, and we are eternally grateful to them. We also added a 4th pillar this year, because one of the big things that we do as a foundation is really connect people in our community to the needs in our schools and try to keep them connected to their school. And last year we kicked off the Alumni Connection. And so with some of these pieces that we do, really our goal is to connect people. So we have, our ambassadors program, which is a wonderful partnership with the district, and we have 26 ambassadors this year. We've already had our first visit, and it went wonderful. We have Alumni Connection events that we will continue to have. We had 2 tours this fall, Glendale and Central. We have our Lunch and Learn events. We had our first one in September at Hillcrest, where we highlighted the Volt Credit Union, the Student Credit Union, and we have one in November coming up. So all of these are just ways that we provide an opportunity for the community to connect. So just kind of on that alumni connection piece, I wanted to give you a real quick update. When we started this program 2 years ago, we hired a full-time program director and launched the Alumni Connection. At that time, we had about 525 sort of known alumni records that we felt we can verify those are true alumni records. Probably had more, we just didn't have all of them documented. We have a lot of donors that are alumni, but maybe they haven't told us what school they go to. So today, we have over 12,000 alumni records that we feel pretty confident are accurate. And so we have been working super hard to build that database so that we can continue to connect to alumni and provide them with an opportunity to support their schools. So one of the things that we started last year was hosting alumni tours at each of our high schools, and we had great feedback from the folks that attended those events, and we already have next summer and next fall's events on the calendar. So Hillcrest will be June 7th, Kickapoo will be June 12th, Glendale will be July 18th, and Parkview and Central will have theirs the evening of their first home football game. So we're really excited about that opportunity, and we'll continue to watch that grow. And a couple other things I want you to watch for. We are revamping our crowdfunding platform. So we have 2 platforms, one that is really designed for SPS staff to reach out to the community to ask for funds for specific projects in their classrooms and their schools, and one that is designed for community members to raise money for their schools. So they're 2 separate platforms now, but we are looking into how we can combine those, but still provide that crowdfunding piece. What's unique about ours, and that we don't charge any fee to the school or the teacher or the community member for utilizing that platform, whereas some of the others like GoFundMe and some of those, they charge a fee. So we just have a really great platform, and we want more folks to be aware of that and to utilize it. So we're looking at a revamp of that program, so keep your eyes open for that. We will also have a winter grant delivery. On top of the back to school grants that we awarded just last month, $235,000, we are planning a second round of grants in December, and we usually award around $30,000 during that grant cycle as well. And of course, we want you to mark your calendar for Celebrate SPS. So it is on Friday, May 2nd this year. So it's our second year to do it on a Friday, and we are always excited to have you there to help us celebrate our schools. And I will answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay, are there any questions for Natalie? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Judy?
I don't have any questions. I just have a huge thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the donors, to your staff, to you raising everyone's awareness. It really is just one more reason to be proud of Springfield Public Schools. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us to item 5.01, contracts, agreements, change orders, and bids. The preliminary KCOB reports are available for review by the board members and will be brought forward for a vote as part of the consent agenda during our October 22nd regular meeting. We've had opportunity to ask some questions. Are there any other questions at this time? And this is just informational. We'll vote on October 22nd. Okay, we'll have an additional 2 weeks to continue to review that and ask any questions. That moves us to item 6.01, approval of the transportation routes for the 24-25 school year. Each year, the Board of Education is asked to approve routes over which school buses travel to receive reimbursement. This is an item that we vote on annually. Executive Director of Operations, Mr. Dilday, will join us for this agenda item.
Good evening. So in your board packets is the transportation requirements that we have to approve. Those have to be approved no later than the end of October. So is there any questions at this time concerning transportation routes?
And this information was provided to the board, and again, we'll have an additional 2 weeks to ask any questions. Okay, thank you. Moves us to item 6.02, strategic plan. The strategic plan governing priority number 2, organizational efficiency and excellence, early separation notice incentive adjustment. And Dr. Shaw is with us this evening.
Well, good evening. We have current board policy GCPB that provides an early notice separation incentive for employees in 3 levels. The first one being 1,000, then it goes to 750, and then to 500 based on the amount of time that notice is given. And so, much like last year when we came to the board and requested this one-time early notice incentive, we're coming to you this evening as well. There we go. And so what we are asking again this year is for the board to approve a one-time early notice incentive of $1,500 that would fall under this same board policy as long as there are resignations or retirement letters submitted by November 30th. So as we look at what is the reason for why we're asking this. So this chart will be very familiar to you. It was a chart provided throughout the budgeting process in the small group meetings. It was a chart that was provided in the June meeting, and it's our operating fund projections. And so in this fund projection, there are assumptions. It is around what reassessment will do. It's around the change in the recalculation of local effort for the state formula. The SAT, the state adequacy target increase into the formula. It involves modest cost of living adjustments throughout these years for staff, as well as modest increases for insurance, as well as you can see in your expenditures there, purchase services and supplies gradually continue to go up. All of those things are assumptions that you can see that fund balance at the bottom in yellow continues to go down. But a big part of this that allows that fund balance that was created from federal stimulus funds to gradually work its way down. There's also $7.5 million in the next 2 fiscal years of reductions that need to take place in order for us to have that gradual decline to get our fund balance back to where board policy says it can't go below and what our strategic plan says. And so as you look at this screen, again, one you'll be familiar with, you can see where the historical and what our projected fund balance is with these reductions that are needed over the next 2 fiscal years. And so as we get back to this recommendation, to receive this one-time payment, employees must work the entirety of their contract of the fiscal year in which notice was given, that's for contracted employees, or the entirety of their 24-25 work calendar for non-contracted employees, whichever one is applicable. They would receive this one-time incentive on their last final paycheck, and we do estimate based on historical trends of those who have submitted resignations early, this will be about a $50,000 cost to the district. This allows us, by having this in place, we know that by reducing $7.5 million out of next year's budget, that's not simply going to be able to come from supplies and purchase services. We know there will be positions that will be eliminated, and so the earlier we can know what open positions there are, then that helps us to be able to place those staff members where positions are eliminated into those positions as early as possible. And so that's the purpose behind why we are requesting this again for our next year's budget. Are there questions I can answer for you at this time?
Dr. Shaw, this is, we've had this incentive for how long now? Third year, isn't it?
This is the second year that we've
Second year.
requested the one-time $1,500 incentive. Last year it was requested due to all of the ESSER positions that we were needing to eliminate out of this current budget.
Were we pretty successful in implementing it the first year where we were able to fill those vacancies relatively
Yeah, I mean, not
quickly?
everything obviously is going to be able to get filled, but we were able to. We had about 100 individuals that qualified for this last year that submitted their resignations by the end of November, which is where that $50,000 number comes from. And then we would have some more, because at the end of, by January 5th, I believe, it's $1,000, then February 5th. And these are, that's a contracted stipulation. For non-contracted employees, there's a range as far as how many days they give notice because they have work calendars and not contracts. But it did assist the process, and so that's why we're coming back again.
Thank you.
Are there any other board member questions? Yeah, Board Member Burton?
Are you capping this incentive to the first X amount of people?
Not the plan. And that historical trend, let me add to that. We looked at last year, and then we looked obviously at years prior to see where that lands. I think we estimated last year to be about 40,000. This year, about 50 because of what that historical trend was. But I think if the more notice we have from employees, it does assist with that. The tasks that we have at hand over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I agree. So it seems like this is a,
And sorry, Board Member Burton, if you could speak up, I don't think that these are working very well.
hello?
I don't think that they're working at all.
Okay, so it seems like this is not directly a cost-saving measure. Actually, it creates cost.
Yes, it
But what
does.
we're doing is trying to do right by our employees to have as much information as soon as possible so that we can shuffle the right people around, okay? It seems worth considering, though, to maybe put a cap on it for a few reasons. One would be, it's a weird thing to incentivize your employees to leave, right? So what if 500 people came and said, we want the money, let's leave, and we go, now we're losing too many people, and also we have to pay them. But also, if you put a cap on it, I think it would create a little bit of exclusivity and promote them to do it as soon as possible. So I think it would protect us from too many, get us to the number that we want, and you could even create further incentive for them to come sooner. So just something to consider.
The other board member questions?
I do, but this isn't working.
You'll just have to speak loudly.
Two questions.
Okay.
You said last year about 100 people, so I'm assuming they weren't super early because it would have been $100,000 or $150,000.
Well, this is an additional 50,000 over what they would have got under the current board policy. So current board policy says if they resign by January 5th, they get $1,000.
Oh, so to bump it up to
So to
1,500.
bump it to 1,500,
Got it.
you get an extra 500, and there was 100, so that's where the 50,000 number came
Got it.
from. So it's an additional above and beyond what we would
What
normally.
we already have.
Yeah, what we normally have in policy.
So how much did we spend last year?
Overall, on early
overall,
incentive,
On early incentive?
I don't have that number in front of me, but I can certainly get it.
I'm sorry, I would have asked earlier, I didn't quite read this correctly. And then my other question was, I'm reflecting on what Board Member Byrne just said. If, we'll be voting on this in 2 weeks, assuming that this doesn't change and we do vote on it, the way it's currently worded, would it prevent us from putting a cap on it? Should there be like 500 people who decide they want to leave?
My understanding is, based on what the recommendation would be, is that there wouldn't be a cap. So if the board's desire is to cap that number, then that would need to be part of the recommendation, would be my guess.
So it would have to be decided before. Got it. Thank you.
Any other board member questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Shaw. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Lathan for item 6.03.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. Just as we get prepared, Chief Douglas will join us at the podium. If you recall, last fall of 23, we had a presentation around a demographic study. And at that time, we shared that was step one of a multi-phase process that we need to implement as it's working now, as a district over the next several years. So step one was the demographic study last fall, followed by the recommendation to close Robinson Elementary School and then to change Pershing K-8 school to a middle school. And so tonight, we are now at the next step of the process, which is to discuss boundary adjustments. I'd like to thank our building principals. Some of those principals are actually here tonight. Building principals, just wave your hands to be recognized. So they're here. They've been a part of this discussion and process that we're presenting to the board tonight with the 3 recommendations and then 1 request of the board. I also like to recognize Keith Adams, our Director of Transportation. He's here, has been a part of this discussions, and also Kevin Creighton, who is our Director of Data and Analytics. And so I would like to thank them for their hard work. They've been working over the past year as we got prepared to present this tonight. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, and we'll begin by starting with a recommendation around the man boundaries along with Jeffries, and actually start with a little bit of just, again, the purpose that Dr. Lathan stated around what are we trying to accomplish here, which is really addressing overutilization of spaces or overcrowding that can really impact high class sizes. It can result in teachers at the end of hallways. It can also have teachers on carts, and we want to avoid that, obviously, by being proactive in how we're monitoring and adjusting these boundaries. But also on the flip side, addressing underutilization of class spaces where we may have unbalanced class sizes, and also we want to be efficient in how we're utilizing our spaces overall. And so we have this aligned with Strategic Plan Objective 4.1, which is to ensure that quality of space for all students and staff. We're doing this by addressing multiple facilities that have overutilization and underutilization. So as Dr. Lathan was saying, this really began last year with the presentation of the Davis Demographic Study to the Board of Education. Since then, we've continued that work, doing research around just that school utilization out of that study, evaluating those school feeder impacts, continuing to monitor a variety of residential developments that impact these results, and seeking, most importantly, input from our principals. That has all helped shape the recommendations that we'll bring forward tonight. 2 assumptions that we also want to put out there is, first, we do anticipate the need for a facility master plan with an updated demographic study would be needed for any future bond proposals. So as we've used this to guide that work, we anticipate that being updated as we move forward. Additionally, the numbers that we'll see tonight are still based upon that Davis demographic study. So we are still utilizing that information, and we continue to update that as we move forward. So this first boundary recommendation around man is to address the overutilization at Man Elementary by balancing the boundary with Jeffries Elementary. And so on this slide, what you'll see is the bolded lines represent the current attendance boundaries for this school year. The highlighted areas or the shaded areas represent the recommendation for next school year, the 25-26 school year. And so the yellow shaded area represents what the Jeffries attendance boundaries would look like next year, and you can see that shifts to the east, with this green area really kind of bringing out what is being impacted. And then the blue shaded area being where the man boundaries will exist for the 25-26 school year. And so as we look at the utilization of these spaces, this is how it starts to impact us. So with our current utilization, Jeffries is sitting around 73% of overall utilization of their facility, while the Man Elementary is currently sitting at about 86%. The Davis Demographic Study, which took into multiple factors, projects that the Man Elementary feeder will actually increase into the mid-90s as we look at overall utilization. And that's where we want to make an adjustment here to address that change. So with this adjustment in boundaries for next school year, the green represents what the change would be. So we would see Jeffries increase up into 78%, while it brings Man down into the low 80s. But most importantly, also impacting those future years to ensure that we're not going to run into an overcrowding situation at Man Elementary. For this specific boundary change, there's 25 students currently that would be impacted next year. Those 25 students would gain bus eligibility, but they would be picked up by the existing buses. So no additional resources are needed to support those 25 students that would now become bus eligible due to a barrier street, meaning that street is too busy for our elementary students to walk. As we think about all of these boundaries changes and these recommendations, we have developed out this communication plan. So we're here tonight to present these changes to the Board of Education. We will be notifying our families that are affected or impacted by this change, along with those staff members. We'll be asking for a vote at the October 22nd board meeting. And from there, we'll also be providing a letter home to the families impacted by this change, so those 25 that we've discussed there. From there, we'll also be including information around transfers. So if those families want to choose to stay at their previous elementary, they would follow the transfer process. We'll include the information of how they apply and what they can expect through that process. And then finally, we'll be providing additional information meetings as needed to those families to ensure that they're informed and know what next steps they can take. So with our next boundary recommendation, we'll move to Sunshine Elementary. And we'll bring that up here. And the recommendation here is to address overutilization at Sunshine Elementary by balancing boundaries at Twain and Holland. And so here's what our map represents for our recommendation for the 25-26 school year. So again, the bolded lines represent current attendance boundaries, while the shaded areas represent the 25-26 recommendation. And so you can see the boundaries for Twain and Holland shifting to the north up to Sunshine Street. So what this means in terms of our overall numbers is Sunshine is currently over 100% utilization. Multiple spaces at that facility have had to be repurposed for instructional classrooms. And so that is a very real impact that's being realized at Sunshine currently. With this recommendation, this will actually bring Sunshine down significantly. It would represent, if this were to change today, bringing them down to 82%. And as we think about overall utilization, we want to be in that 80 to 85 range in general. It does project up into the high 90s, but this is where our continued work of evaluating those developmental pieces that are in that boundary area, we don't believe that it'll have as significant an impact as the Davis demographic study showed. Those two areas, we just do not see students really coming into out of those developments. And so as you look at the other impacts, it brings Holland into the mid-80s and also Twain into the mid-80s as we think about the overall utilization of these spaces, which is where we want to be. For this specific boundary recommendation, 59 students would lose bus eligibility. So we would have 44 that would move from Sunshine to Twain Elementary and 15 that would move from Sunshine to Holland. Those students lose that transportation eligibility because they will no longer be crossing Sunshine as a barrier street, and they will be within a 1 mile radius of their new school. So they'll be in neighborhoods that they'll be able to walk. And again, we'll follow that same communication plan. We'll be notifying those impacted families. We'll be providing that letter. We'll be providing information around transitional transfers and making sure that they're informed as to what next steps look like. So our third boundary recommendation tonight is for Westport K-8. So what we are hoping to accomplish here is addressing needs at the Westport K-8 school while addressing underutilization at Pipkin Middle School. So for this boundary change, again, the bolded lines represent the current attendance areas, while the highlighted or shaded areas represent our recommendation. So our recommendation is actually adjusting the feeder patterns for Pipkin and Westport Middle School. For this recommendation, Bissett students would now feed into Pipkin Middle School opposed to Westport Middle School. For the impact, what we see is this brings Pipkin into the 80s in their utilization currently, while balancing them in the future. And as we look at Westport, the Westport capacity is also planned for both the elementary and the middle school capacity. So currently, and based upon the Davis demographic and our continued research, Westport is projected to increase in their population up into the 90s in just 5 years, and even further 10 years out. What this recommendation would do is move that down to putting Westport more into the 80th percentile, while also reducing the number of feeder schools into Westport to allow them to address the community within that school and create a stronger school community there. So this recommendation would impact 54 students that currently attend Westport and then would attend Pipkin Middle School next year. There's no change in eligibility for these students for transportation. They currently receive transportation due to a barrier street, and they would continue to receive transportation eligibility due to a barrier street. And again, we'll follow that same communication plan for these boundaries to make sure that our families are informed. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Shaw for a final recommendation.
So this one's a little bit different. It is around a boundary advisory committee that we would be asking the board to approve and essentially deploy this work. As you recall, when we were providing information around the small group meetings, there was a lot of complexity around the middle school piece. There were things that we felt as administration that this is an opportunity for us to pause. It wasn't immediate, urgent need around the work, and so we felt like, given the significant results, honestly, that we've had through different committee meetings and committee advisory committees, that this work warranted this. And so part of, and I'll skip through these because they're the same as what Bruce had submitted, but there is board policy, BCE, around creating an advisory committee to further this work. And so part of that policy gives us guidance. This committee shall be advised to the purpose that it needs to serve, the length of time each member is going to be asked to serve, the resources the board will provide, and then the date in which the report will be made to the board or superintendent. So what we see the purpose of this meeting is to evaluate the middle school boundaries, all of them, of the district, and provide recommendations that would take place no sooner than the 26-27 school year. So this is not a next fall recommendation. The work will take place this year, but we realize it's going to create a lot of time in order to get there. The length of service, we anticipate no more than 6 90-minute meetings that will probably happen in the December to March timeframe. The resources provided, the board will direct administration to make available the required staff. Some will be sitting in this room currently, others will be asked to participate. Myself and Bruce Douglas will lead up this work, and then the Board of Education will also can appoint up to 3 members as representatives on this particular committee. And then we would present, there would be a report presented to the board in April of 2025. The communication planning is a little different. We would be asking the board to approve this work moving forward. We would then start looking at what makes up that committee and sending out those invitations with feedback that we receive. It would involve teachers and administrators. It would involve parents, community members that have knowledge around the city. It would be board members that we would work to really come to good, solid recommendations around the boundaries for middle schools. Those meetings, again, would be held through December and March, and then a report provided at the April 15th meeting to the board at that time for their consideration around those recommendations. So that concludes the 4 presentations around boundaries, and so we will pause and answer what questions you may have for Mr. Douglas and myself.
Thank you, and thank you for all the staff time that you spent with the board members in small meetings, because I know that there was a lot of questions, and this is not the first time that we've seen these large drawings over here. These help a lot, and certainly your time over the past few weeks has been appreciated, so that this isn't the first time that we're hearing these recommendations. Are there questions for board members at this time? And this is just informational item this evening, and we'll vote on October 22nd. Yes, Board Member Provance.
Dr. Shaw, I believe that I had heard information earlier that this would reduce our busing for the children from 1.5 to...
Hold on, that's next agenda item? Hold on.
Hold that question. And I bet you won't have to ask it.
No one's ready. She's ready for the next item.
Oh, yeah. Board Member Muhammad Khani.
Okay, so
It
I'm
was
asking
originally
this.
part of this, but we had
You
to
can
do.
go to slide 8 on the Westport Pipkin one, because, Carl might look at this and do the math. I don't know why I didn't notice it. So the number of students that are impacted is 54 on slide 9. But then on slide 8, if you scroll one up, the numbers don't add up. What am I not seeing here?
So this is a fun one that we've been around multiple times on as well. So the impacted on this slide represents the students that would be impacted in their transportation eligibility next year.
Next year.
The number of students, if we just made this change today, is represented here. So there is a difference on all of these of 1 or 2 or 3, I forget off the top of my head.
But-
And I'll call on Keith to help me out on that one if I need to.
Oh, okay, so slide 9 is, there will be more than 54 students, if we did it today,
Yeah.
that would be impacted, but only 54 of them are in the busing. So the numbers are, because it's of all the changes, this one's the most significant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Sorry, did you say something,
No.
Bruce?
Mr. Adams
Keith was
did.
wondering if you wanted any additional
Oh, no,
information.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
So the parenthesis is the elementary school, and so you have, for example, currently at Westport, we have 357 elementary students, 438 middle school students, together it's 795. And that number is going to, if we were to do this today, it would go down by almost 150 students. Because you're going down
Number
from
right there.
almost 800 to 641.
For the middle school. That number looks incorrect to me. So let me go back and verify that and we'll get that updated.
So it's not
Yeah.
150? That's why
No,
I was like, wait,
no.
this looks a little different.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've looked at this multiple times and we missed that one. So we'll go back and verify that one and get that updated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Board Member Byrne.
On this same slide, how, if at all, in the future forecast of Pipkin is the new Pipkin factored in?
That capacity of 550 is the capacity of the new Pipkin.
Oh, what is it currently? You don't have to tell me. So we
It's
we-
more
we
than,
currently
it's
have-
more than 550.
We currently have 448.
Current student.
We currently have 373 as of last week.
373.
Yeah, and with this recommendation, it would increase it today. up
Building to
the-
550,
Yeah.
so we're going to have room, so we're going to shift some people over there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the 75 number's more accurate than the 150.
yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Okay, that's where.
yeah, I see where you're at.
So it's really, so the Pipkin number's accurate, 448 minus 373. Got it.
Okay. There are other board member questions, and again, we'll have another few weeks to review this, but this is not the first time we've seen it, and again, we appreciate your time on this.
And apparently every time you look at it, you see something different.
Okay?
See it again.
And that leads us to our next agenda item. Dr. Shaw will remain with us and discuss your topic, Susan.
He'll roll right through it so he can get to that point.
Can you pull up that presentation for me?
If
Tammy?
not, Susan can just do the presentation.
Which one is that?
So this is a request for a change in board policy because the board policy is around these transportation services. So I think I've got to go
Yeah.
back several. Okay, so we needed to give some context around the change that we're asking in that board policy. And so the purpose essentially for this recommendation is to expand transportation eligibility for our elementary, intermediate, and K-8 student campuses. And this allows then for us to maintain that high efficiency and sustainable services for our students. Strategic plan alignment is under operational efficiencies, objective 2.3, expanding transportation services in a sustainable manner, but also ensuring that efficiency in transportation and maximizing our resources for students and financial impacts. So when we think about background, we're going to go back a few years and think about initially the Transportation Expansion Work Group that did their work in 2021 that was initially approved and then started being put together by the board in 2020. Continued things that we're working on right now are around transportation efficiency ratings. We don't stop doing that ever. The ability to sustain our models that we have in place, especially dealing with staffing and equipment, and then we continue to get principal input around the topic. So when the work group for transportation expansion was deployed, there were two main goals that group had a charge, and that was to increase the ridership for students in grades 9, 12, as well as the ridership for our students that go to choice programs. 6 meetings were held, and there was information provided both by a consulting firm that we had in place at the time, as well as administration. So after all that work was done, the work group presented a report to the board that would add a third tier of busing in order to make this work for the increased eligibility for students. Obviously, that meant new start times for schools, aligning our grade levels so that it made the most sense with these tiers, provided information around anticipated impacts, provided financial guidance, as well as timeline and implementation. And then the recommendation was to adjust high school from 3.5 miles of eligibility down to 1.5, and then also to address the choice program needs. Unfortunately, we had a small thing called the pandemic that affected everything. And so the staffing was simply not there during the 21-22 school year. And so there were major adjustments that were made to the salaries, as well as you can see 5 different incentives that were actually put in place for that department to really retain, but also recruit. Some of those were very, very beneficial. Others we didn't keep around very long because they just didn't pay dividends. But because of those staffing shortages, we were not able to go down to 1.5 miles. We went to 2.5 miles, which is where those grade levels for the high school currently sit. We continue to be asked the question, are we ever going to get back to a 2-tier model? Okay. So here's the work that the team did to determine what is the feasibility of that. And when you look at these numbers, to go to a 2-tier model, we would have to have an initial capital of $5.5 million to purchase the needed buses for that, as well as an increase of about $2 million annually just to operate 2 tiers. The worst part about that, in my opinion, is there's no additional eligibility for riders. We were at 3.5 miles for high school kids on a 2-tier model, and that's the problem, is that we can't provide enough transportation because of this particular model. It decreases efficiency, obviously, and one of the big benefits that I keep hearing from our department is that now that we are at a 3-tier model, our drivers and our bus aides are all pretty much full-time employees because they're running 3 tiers in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and it's a great job for them, and it's more hours than what they've had before. So this is a recommendation, is that we increase the eligibility for elementary, intermediate, and K-8 schools by reducing this mileage requirement from 1.5 down to 1 mile. So what is it going to take to get there? Currently, we run 105 routes on Tier 1, 103 routes on Tier 2, 95 on Tier 3. To make no changes whatsoever to any of the tiers, it means adding 10 routes to Tier 1, 2 routes to Tier 2, and 2 routes to Tier 3, giving us 115, 105, and 97. So, one, that increases our overall highest tier by 10 routes, which is 10 people. But there's a lot of, as you can see, 115 to 105 to 97 is very uneven, and so it's not an efficient model. And so as our team looked at this, the simple changes of Westport K-8 moving from Tier 1 to Tier 3, which is where they initially started in the 3-tier system, and Sunshine from Tier 1 to Tier 2, reduces Tier 1 by 7 routes, adds 3 to the 2nd tier, and adds 4 to the 3rd tier, giving us 108, 108, and 101. So much more even among the first 2 tiers, and then we have a drop-off on the 3rd tier. And so you can see what's current, what the eligibility expansion would do, what would be needed if we change these tiers. One of the positive things about having only 101 on Tier 3 while having 108 on the other 2 tiers is you've got 7 drivers that are going to be able to drive trips for us, which is a very high populated time for trips, is that third tier. And so they would be ready and able to do that, and they would get hours in that manner. So this is the big chart that really, I think, is a huge, huge win. So by making this change, 1,110 students currently would gain eligibility for transportation. And based on our percentage of participation for routes, about 709 would actually ride the bus. And so when we look at efficiencies, we get 11% more students riding with only a 3% more resources. And so that's a huge win, again, for our students, our communities, the district as a whole. Staffing has been a point of huge effort among the department all year long. Keith would tell you that this time last year, it was a scary thing, and they have worked diligently under great leadership, under great strategies, and where we are now, I think the last number he told me was we have 105 routes and we've got 117 bus drivers, so we've got a full bank of subs, and our office people are not out driving, and so we would not be bringing this recommendation to the board if the staffing wasn't there and we anticipated any concerns moving forward. So that is the information around why we are requesting a change in board policy. And so as you look at communication planning, again, the vote for you would be next meeting on the 22nd. If the board were to vote and change board policy EEA, then notification would be sent to those families about this change that would happen in the 25-26 school year, and then as they registered in the spring, they would then be able to, at that time, get registered for particular transportation desires. So that is the information I have around, I think, a request of about 5 words in board policy.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Are there any board member comments or questions?
No questions, but what a great job.
The team did a lot of work on this. Keith and his team, he's got fantastic routers. They do tremendous work.
I would say from the work of the small groups for both the expansion, for the boundary discussions and for transportation were really beneficial for me as a board member to participate in those conversations. And I was impressed with everyone who's worked on both of those particular projects, both for the boundaries and for transportation. But I was really particularly impressed with Keith Adams and our analytics guy, the work that they did with the transportation, because it makes a huge impact for our students. And having been on that transportation work group, I'm very pleased to see that we're able to offer more transportation to our students.
Other board member comments or questions? Oh, yeah.
I will agree with Board Member Provance, and I'll agree with Board Member Thomas Tate.
Okay. All right, and again, we will have a few more weeks, 2 more weeks to review this and ask any additional questions. Okay. That leads us to item 8.01, change orders and agreements. Mr. Dilday is with us to present information on the 2023 change orders and agreements.
As you're aware, at each board meeting, I bring before you the change order and agreements. In your board packet is current change order and agreements in a total of $96,367. Entertain any questions, see if anybody has any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from board members? I will entertain a motion that the board approve the expenditures as presented. Do I have motion from board member McCoskey? Do I have a second? Second from board member Thomas Tate. We're going to take a verbal vote. Okay, and we'll start with board member Provance.
Aye.
Yes. And board member Byrne?
Aye.
Okay, and chair votes aye. The motion carries 7-0. Oh, it did pop up.
Yeah, it
Okay.
did, finally.
That leads us to item 8.02, field classroom addition construction bid.
So we open bids for the field for classroom addition. In your board package, you will find we have 5 bidders. Paragon Architectural is our architectural firm on that project, and it came in at $1.682, $300. So any questions for the field project.
Are there any questions from board members?
How does this compare to what we were told the budget would be back when we made this decision?
I believe the total budget for this project was around 1.5 million. So and it came in at 1.6. It's a small scale project, it's just 4 classrooms, 4 dry classrooms. So because of scale of work, it came in a little bit higher than what we originally anticipated. In comparison to Wilder, field come in about $64,000 less than Wilder.
Any other board member questions? Okay. I will entertain a motion that the board approve the construction bid as presented. Okay, Board Member Provance makes the motion. Do I have a second? Board Member Byrne? Let's see. Oh, sorry. It did pop up. Okay, so we can vote electronically. Although it's much faster to do a verbal vote.
I voted.
Okay, the motion that the board approve the construction bid as presented passes 7-0. That leads us to item 9.01, Superintendent's update.
Thank you. Thank you again, board members, for attending those small group meetings to discuss our boundary changes and transportation changes. I do appreciate you giving up your time to come in. Today was our first Employee of the Month recognition for the school year for employees throughout the district. So this year, we're doing a little bit different. Not only are we recognizing the second Tuesday of each month teachers, but we're also recognizing not only certified staff, but support staff. So across the district at all of our sites, including departments. We had the wonderful opportunity today. Board members, if you recall back at our retreat in May, I asked you a certain subject area or topic that you were interested in, and I made a note of that. So today, Board Member Provance, because she listed that special education was really important to her, so she accompanied me to recognize our teacher and also our paraprofessional at the base program today. We also had the wonderful opportunity to meet one of our student workers that works at Cox. And here's something interesting about our student worker. He enjoys watching board meetings twice a month. And I know we're all laughing. We were wondering about that. But Zach asked me to make sure that we recognized him tonight. As you can see us with Zach, and asked us to give him a wave. So if you would just wave at the camera, wherever the camera is, to Zach, because Zach said unfortunately he has to work his second job tonight, and he'll watch it tomorrow night, okay? So wanted to recognize that outstanding student. We have some wonderful students in our district. We also kicked off our campaign of giving this week. Our goal is to raise $55,000 to support the United Way and the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools. We'll be collecting money through November 8th, and thank you in advance for those employees that are participating in the Pay It Forward campaign. Last Friday, we had the wonderful opportunity to recognize 2 alumni from Springfield Public Schools, Mr. Billy Cooper, a graduate of Central High School, and Dr. Denise Frederick, a graduate of Hillcrest High School. So thankful that I had the opportunity to interact with both of them. Of course, Denise more on the personal level since she served formerly on the school board. But once again, congratulations to Mr. Cooper and Dr. Frederick. Also, we have completed 4 ribbon cutting board members. The first 2 months of school. Really excited. 4 of the 6 storm shelters have been completed. Thank you again to all of our community members for supporting Proposition S. And we are nearing the finish line for Holland and Cowden. I think we'll do that second semester. And finally, I'd like for us to recognize our board president tonight. Next Friday, she will be recognized as SBJ's 25th class of influential women in the city of Springfield. We will be at a conference, all of us studying, while she's here receiving her award. So we wanted to make sure we say to you, President Kincaid, congratulations, congratulations. Board members, that concludes my comments tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Lathan. You were previously recognized for that award. Was that 2 years ago?
2 years
2 years ago,
and last
yes.
year, Dr. Holt.
Okay, oh, yes, Dr. Holt, thank you.
You're in good company.
Yes, yes. Okay, that leads us to item 10.01, board comments. Are there any comments from board members this evening?
Yes, I promised I'd find it.
Okay.
At the end of the 5-minute mark.
Okay.
I might repeat other people that have already spoken. To Natalie, congratulations to the Springfield Public School Foundation for the $576,970 that they've raised this year, so much benefiting our teachers across the district. These monies enable the grant proposals that teachers turned in to be funded to enhance student learning. This shows an amazing degree of financial support from the stakeholders and local businesses that recognize the incredible role that the Springfield Public Schools provide for the economy and the growth of the community. A special shout out for Natalie, Director of the Foundation, and to her dedicated staff that have raised a total of $19.6 million since 2008 while serving as the Foundation Director. That's an incredible amount of smiles on a lot of kids' faces. You guys do a wonderful job. I'd like to do a second congratulations to the SPS Communications Department, the staff that organized the 2024 Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame. The evening reception and the luncheon were so well attended by the Springfield community. Billie Jean Cooper, that was inducted into the Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame as a 1968 Central High School graduate. He used the opportunity to tour the school and compare and contrast how the Springfield's original high school has changed in the last 56 years. The outside of the school looks the same, but the pit, it's still the pit. And Mr. Cooper talked about Central High School as being a big, happy family and proud of each other's peer successes. He said the inside of the school now houses technology that wasn't even someone's dream in 1968. He noted the increased number of opportunities that students now have through expanded athletics and activities, the social experiences that include all the emotional support from peers and the resources, and of course the vast educational opportunities supported and afforded by the IB program at Central. Our youth that was coached and mentored, as Mr. Cooper did for decades, teaches them to embrace education as a pathway to success. It is true that when a very special person first touches your heart, inspires your confidence, and presents challenges that stretch you and make you become a better person, it is often the same person who leaves the greatest mark in a child for the rest of their life. Dr. Denise Frederick, a 1972 graduate of Hillcrest, most definitely was such a teacher that left everlasting mark on so many of her students. After all of her years at Kickapoo High School, her involvement in the science curriculum that was followed by 12 years on the school board, she influenced so many futures. Yes, schools do shape future generations, one teacher at a time. Everyone grasps the clear picture of why the Springfield schools are so successful. It's because 3,870 Springfield teachers and staff, they've built that connection that builds that first and lasting influence on success-ready kids every day. Stephen Hall, I want to do my shout out to excellence like you always do. And I want to do a special recognition to Disney Elementary School for their extraordinary care provided to my grandson when he broke his arm. Dr. Lori Elliott and Assistant Principal Beth Sandbolt were both away from Disney that day. And the lead teacher, Mrs. Brashears, was the acting principal. Mrs. Brashears was my grandson's second grade teacher last year. And where my grandson and probably most second graders, do not have the perfect classroom behaviors. Mrs. Brashears was always perfect for him. When I arrived at the school, and Mrs. King, the incredible, the wonderful school nurse was there, and Mrs. Brashears came down from the office to comfort him, and I know that school nurses do this, and I know that principals and stand-in principals and assistant principals, they always do this, but it means so much when you see it on a first-hand basis. I don't always see all the other schools, but shout out to Disney. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Purvance. There are any other board member comments at this time? Yes, Board Member Thomas Tate.
I just want to highlight one of our district's initiatives for this year, which is Read to Success, as literacy is near and dear to my heart. I want to encourage all of our community members to participate in a number of ways, and SPS has also provided some great resources for parents who want to support their children's literacy. I encourage all of our families to read with your children, even up through middle school, and if your high school students will let you read with them also. There's lots of great books out there that can be shared with parents and children together. There is an opportunity to participate by taking a selfie and tagging yourself on SPS social media. That is Drop Everything and Read. So find time in your day, every day, to read. I encourage all of the families that I work with to read every day. It is a small thing that we can do every day to build our literacy skills, to demonstrate as adults the importance of literacy to our children, and to find time to connect with our children over books. I also wanted to highlight, I saw it come up on my social media, that our choice programs have open enrollment coming up November 1st through December 1st, and there is a Choice Program Expo coming up on October 28th. That gives parents an opportunity to learn more about our choice programs. I think it's a star gem of our district that we have these opportunities, and I want as many families as possible to be able to take advantage of them. But for many of our families, we need to learn about them first, and so there's some opportunities coming up to learn about those programs and enroll our students in those programs.
Thank you, Board Member Thomas Tate. Board Member Bukowski.
Yes, thank you very much. Hey, I wanted to apologize to my teacher, Dr. Lathan, for not turning my book report in on time. In fact, I didn't turn it in at all. So can I make that up? Can I do 2 book reports?
Actually, on October 24th is Drop Everything and Read, and so you will be required to drop everything and read and take a picture and post it to social media, and so that way you can move up from a D to a C.
Wait a minute, I thought we were on a point scale here. All right. Hey, I really do want to have a shout out to our Ag Academy, Dr. Amanda Adams. Anybody here from Ag Academy?
Not from.
Or work with? Well, I work with her. In March, the students bought all of us members a plant. It was a spider plant.
That's it.
And it was just this little.
And died.
And I wanted to bring tonight that plant, which I see every day, because I actually go out on the deck and I water that thing, and I just like to be on the deck. And it does make me happy because it says smile and be happy. So thank you very much. And a shout out. Well, hey, it's really important for those kids, and I think that it's nice that they should be recognized trying to help board members be happy. I think that's great. And last but not least is the robotics program that we have. Really impressive in that. And just for them tonight, I wore their pin tonight, just in recognition of their efforts. They do a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Member McCoskey. Any other board member comments?
I'm bringing my plant.
I was just going to say, I also have my plant with the little Be Happy sticker. We'll have a Bring Your Plant to Board Meeting Day. Board Member Byrne, Board Member Muhammad Khani, any comments? No? Okay. Vice President Brunner?
First of all, I had the privilege of attending the Principal for a Day luncheon, and it was absolutely delightful. It was the second year that I've had the opportunity to do that, and I, just with so many events that I attend in R12, I come away kind of with a lump in my throat because it's so special and so meaningful and really makes a difference in our community. It's wonderful to sit there and listen to people, business people, debrief what they saw out in the buildings, and I applaud Dr. Lathan for opening it up to so where people can see kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, if that's what's going on. But it really is very rewarding to be a part of all of that. I do want to mention one of the things, and I'll just do a full confession, Dr. Lathan. She stood up when it was part of the debrief, and because cell phones are often on our minds, right? So she stood up, and I sucked a little bit of air when she did this, but she went ahead and did it anyway. And she asked for any of the principals for the day that happened to be in a high school, what was their impression in terms of cell phones, what did they see? And she really expected an honest response, and I believe that's what she got. She had we had the privilege of listening to one person that visited Parkview High School and said in all of her principal of the day meetings, she only saw one cell phone, and I thought, oh, here we go. And then she said, and it was my own son who wanted to take a picture of me out in the hallway. So I thought that was really good. There was another gentleman that had been at Kickapoo High School, and he talked about the appropriate use of technology that he saw. He said he saw iPads, he saw Chromebooks, and he just did not see that cell phones were an issue. Now, you know, I think we all agree that the cell phone issue has been a hot button, and but I think we're making some headway there, at least in terms of what I'm hearing from building principals when I have an opportunity to see them, as well as the feedback that they gave us at Principal for the Day. Susan, I listened to the choke in your voice as you talked about Dr. Denise Frederick and Mr. Billy Jean Cooper, both outstanding individuals in our community, and I love the whole idea of the Hall of Fame. But what struck me as I went back and read their kind of biographies is that both of their claims to fame, or their biggest marks, were in the role of volunteers in our community in a variety of ways. They have spent a lifetime giving of themselves to the community, as well as the mark that they've made in terms of their professional life. Both of them had very successful careers. Everybody has a mountain to climb, and I think those two are perfect examples of how you climb that mountain and make a success of yourself. So that was wonderful. And to Dr. Thomas Tate, your comment about literacy and reading, I know that we always put a lot of emphasis on reading with and to younger students, or even preschool children, and the importance of them listening to the written word and holding books and looking at them. But let's not stop there. My granddaughter is 12 years old. She's a 7th grader, and we have a book club going right now. And I have challenged her, and I did it with her 2 brothers years ago, even when they were in high school, that they pick a book and we read it together. So just chapter by chapter. And I will tell you that Murphy's choice was To Kill a Mockingbird. And so I went, okay. And we talked a little bit about what that content might be, and I assessed that she was probably ready to handle that, especially if I could read it with her. And so we as a community continue to read with our children regardless of their age. So you can turn something like a book club into something very meaningful for a grandmother, and hopefully it will be a good memory for her as well. So thank you for the Drop Everything and Read Day, and I'm looking forward now to October 24th. I think I can give one if you would like.
Okay. Board Member Muhammad Khani.
Well, I didn't,
Thank you.
but now I do.
Okay.
Dr. Lathan, as we go about our day, we meet various people in the various hats we wear. Today, I was at Mission University, and the parent of 5th grader Grayson Young, remember, from Unity T? You remember the elementary students? She wanted me to say hello to you. It took me a moment to place her when she was explaining about, do you recall Unity? We had elementary students?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yep.
yes.
Okay, yep, so I wanted to relay that. And with all this talk about literacy, I want to put in a plug for the Retired Senior Volunteer Program through the Council of Churches. You don't have to be retired, you don't have to be a senior. You just have to be willing to give up 30 minutes to an hour a week. It's really nothing. And I thought, so I signed up, and I'm getting ready to start. I thought that, because it's a big job for those of us who aren't teachers, I thought we'd had to teach them to read, but that's really not what it is. I mean, that could be part of it, but it's to inspire a love of reading, which...
That's half the battle.
That's half the battle. And so I was a math buddy, and this year, I have the privilege of being a reading buddy, and I really just want to encourage everyone to do this. It's super flexible. You can be at any school that you want because there's a need at every school, round the corner, on your way to work, where you live. I mean, just about anywhere. So I wanted to put in a plug for them.
Okay, all right, thank you. I also failed to turn in my book report because I was playing hooky and went on vacation instead. So, October 24th,
Drop everything and read.
I will do extra credit that day.
And it can't be legal documents.
Okay, it won't be legal documents, it'll be something more fun than that. I also wanted to echo the Hall of Fame. If I could have somehow recorded what Mr. Billy Cooper said on Friday evening about his experience in visiting the high school, it was magical. He's dynamic. Mr. Cooper, if you are listening, please come speak to us. I want everyone in this room, all the educators, to hear what your experience was visiting. And one of the important things or notable things that he mentioned was that he had the privilege that not everybody who looks like him had at that time, and it was so important to him, the value of diversity, not just for him, but also for his white counterparts there, and how important that is to have in our schools to have a better community as adults. And Dr. Denise Frederick, thank you. You do always get teary-eyed anytime you speak, but that is because of your passion and your dedication to public school. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you for your service to the board and for being a mentor for the first few years that I was on the board. And something important that you said that I just want to mention is a shout out to her partner in crime, her husband Gail, and all of her family members, her bonus son, and her friends and other family who, anytime she had an idea or wanted to run for school board or do something else involved in the community, their response was always, why not? And it truly does take, as we know, being on the school board, it doesn't just take a toll on us, it takes a toll on our friends and family members. So thank you, Dr. Frederick. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. You truly are an inspiration. Okay. Moves us to item 10.02, upcoming meetings. On October 22nd, we will have our regular meeting where we will be voting on a number of the items that we discussed this evening. And then on November 5th, we will have a study session. And prior to that time, yes, we will be up in Kansas City for our MSBA conference, which is continuing education for board members. Okay, this time I will entertain a motion that we adjourn the board meeting.
So moved.
Motion from Board Member Thomas Tate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second from Board Member Muhammad Khani. Is it working?
Yes, it is.
It is working, okay. And then